Chosen one. Stop and listen. Heaven has paused the noise around you so that this word can reach the chambers of your heart. You think it was a small thing, that quiet moment when you said yes to God while no one saw, no one applauded, no one even noticed. But heaven did. Angels recorded it. Your whisper of obedience became a trumpet blast in the spirit realm. While the world kept spinning, a shift took place, one that changed the trajectory of a battle you didn't even know existed. You were not born to be loud, you were born to be light. And sometimes, light shines brightest when it doesn't announce itself. The darkness that tried to surround you, the discouragement that crept into your room, the loneliness that sat beside your bed, all of it was meant to silence the obedience in you. Yet you obeyed. You forgave when you could have retaliated. You gave when you had little. You chose purity when temptation pressed close. That moment, hidden and quiet, was not weakness. It was warfare. Heaven's armies move at the sound of obedience, not at shouting, not at noise, but at surrender. When you said, "Yes, Lord," something in the unseen cracked open. Demons that thought they had you figured out were thrown into confusion. Angels who had been waiting for permission to act were released into motion. You think you just obeyed, but in reality, you signed a divine command that realigned the battleground in your favor. Chosen one. You have to understand, heaven measures greatness differently. The world crowns those who perform in public. Heaven crowns those who obey in secret. The applause of men fades, but the fragrance of obedience rises forever. There are victories that your name is attached to that you may never hear about on this side of eternity. Somewhere, because of your quiet faithfulness, a chain broke. Somewhere, a family line began to heal. Somewhere, the darkness was pushed back an inch farther, and heaven smiled. You wonder why the enemy has fought you so relentlessly. It's not because of what you're doing, it's because of what your obedience unlocks. The smallest step you take in faith releases light that burns through layers of darkness. That is why the battle feels so heavy at times. You carry authority, and the darkness knows it even when you forget it. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 6, "Your Father who sees in secret will reward you." That single line from the lips of the Savior is a key to the kingdom. The world tells you that reward follows recognition, but heaven says reward follows secrecy. The Father who watches you in the unseen, who hears the prayer you never post, who notices the act of kindness you never announce, he is already preparing the return. The reward may not come in coins or titles. It will come in peace that cannot be stolen, in doors that open when no man can explain why, in favor that bends timelines to meet your destiny. When heaven noticed your quiet obedience, the ripple became a wave. A battle that had raged for generations began to tilt. Angels shifted formation. What was delayed began to accelerate. The unseen victory that heaven celebrated has not yet been revealed in your timeline, but it is real. And it is coming. There are those who are watching you, wondering why you keep holding on, why you haven't quit. They do not know that your endurance is not stubbornness, it is divine assignment. You are standing as a living intercession for your bloodline. The warfare around you is not random, it is inherited. Yet your obedience is breaking that inheritance. Your yes is rewriting history. You may feel small, but in the spirit realm, you are a fortress. The light in you terrifies darkness because it does not understand silence that still burns. Every time you choose humility, you disarm the enemy. Every time you choose love, you defeat a legion. Every time you choose to stay faithful, you anchor heaven's victory on earth. So, don't minimize what God is doing in you. Don't call your process punishment when it is actually preparation. You are being trained in the art of quiet warfare, the kind that wins battles without shouting. Heaven is raising hidden generals who do not need a stage to carry authority. And you, chosen one, are one of them. Let this truth settle deep inside you. Your obedience is not invisible, it is invincible. You are seen. You are recorded in heaven's archives. And one day, when the veil lifts, you will understand how your whispered yes shifted the balance of power between realms. If this word resonates in your spirit, take a moment, like, share, and subscribe so that this message can reach more of heaven's chosen ones. Then, as a prophetic act, comment the number 777 below to declare that your obedience still speaks louder than any attack. Chosen one, your obedience did not vanish into silence, it echoed through eternity. Every quiet decision you made, every moment you whispered, "Yes, Lord," became a vibration that rippled through dimensions unseen. You thought it was small, but heaven measured it as mighty. The unseen realm listens to obedience more than to noise. And your faith has been a sound that terrifies the kingdom of darkness. There are laws in the spirit that cannot be broken. Obedience multiplies light. Rebellion multiplies chaos. When you obeyed, even when it hurt, you joined the eternal rhythm of heaven's harmony. You synchronized with the will of God, and creation itself responded. Mountains that had stood in your path began to bow. Chains wrapped around generations began to tremble. You may not have seen the evidence yet, but in the invisible realm, the alignment has already begun. The enemy has tried to convince you that your actions do not matter. He whispers, "No one sees, no one cares, no one remembers." But he is a liar. The unseen ripples of your obedience have already broken through barriers that prayer alone could not move. The sound of your yes was more powerful than the sound of your pain. It reverberated through spiritual corridors where ancient strongholds stood. And one by one, those strongholds began to weaken. You were never meant to measure your worth by applause. Heaven weighs your obedience, not your popularity. The kingdom moves when a child of God obeys without understanding. That is what confuses hell, when you submit to God's command, even while standing in the middle of mystery. The darkness has studied rebellion for centuries, but it cannot comprehend surrender. Your obedience exposes its weakness. You may have noticed shifts around you lately, unusual pressure, sudden silence, or waves of emotion that seem unexplainable. These are not coincidences, they are spiritual reverberations. Every act of obedience sends shockwaves through layers of resistance. You do not simply exist, you carry spiritual gravity. Your yes moves things. Heaven and earth realign because your spirit has agreed with divine order. When Abraham obeyed and left his home without knowing where he was going, heaven initiated a covenant that would outlive empires. When Mary obeyed and said, "Be it unto me according to your word," the Word himself became flesh. You, too, are part of that lineage, the lineage of those who obey when the outcome is hidden. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Samuel in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 15, verse 22. To obey is better than sacrifice. That truth has never changed. Sacrifice can be public, obedience is personal. Sacrifice can be seen, obedience is often unseen. Yet, in heaven's ledger, obedience always weighs more. Sacrifice may impress men, but obedience moves God. You can give 1,000 things and still miss His will, but one moment of true obedience rewrites your entire story. Your obedience has not been wasted, it has been sown. Seeds take time, and sometimes the soil looks barren, but the roots are deep. In the hidden places, heaven has been watering what you thought had died. When God commanded Noah to build an ark under clear skies, obedience looked like foolishness, but when the rain came, that same obedience became salvation. In the same way, your quiet decisions are preparing a structure heaven will use when storms arrive. What you build in obedience will protect many when the flood of confusion hits the world again. The ark you are building in secret will carry more souls than you can imagine. Obedience is not about understanding, it is about alignment. The Spirit whispers instructions that the mind cannot comprehend, yet the heart knows they are right. That is why your obedience carries weight. It was birthed in trust, not logic. You didn't have proof, you had faith. And that faith became the blueprint for angelic activity around your life. You've felt the tension, haven't you? The pull between what is easy and what is right. Every time you choose right over easy, heaven celebrates. Angels move closer. Darkness retreats an inch. And though you may never hear the applause, heaven's records show your name engraved in light. There are assignments that only activate through obedience. Revelation follows movement. You have reached a point where heaven no longer gives explanations, it gives instructions, and your obedience becomes the key to unlock the next level of grace. So do not despise the small instructions. Heaven sees them as mighty. When God tells you to forgive, to wait, to stay silent, to love again, to keep giving, to keep walking, that obedience is shifting realms. You are changing the temperature of the spiritual atmosphere around you. The unseen ripples of your obedience are reshaping futures, rewriting outcomes, and healing timelines that once were broken. Chosen one, your yes has already been heard. Keep walking, keep aligning. The ripples are still spreading, somewhere beyond what you can see. Your obedience has become a river, flowing into the purposes of God that cannot fail. Chosen one, there was a day heaven paused for you. You did not feel the tremor, but all of creation did. In a single act of surrender, quiet, small, unannounced, you shifted the weight of an entire spiritual battlefield. You thought it was an ordinary decision to forgive instead of retaliate, to trust instead of fear, to obey instead of argue. Yet that moment became a divine signal in the heavens. The unseen realm does not respond to noise, it responds to alignment. When you said yes in faith, you released a frequency that angels recognize. It was like a trumpet blast to them. Though to you it was a whisper, the armies of heaven halted, then adjusted formation around your obedience. A new command echoed through celestial ranks: protect this one. Reinforce this territory. The battlefield bent toward your favor, and the enemy's strategy began to crumble. You didn't know that your tears became commands. Every sigh of surrender, every moment you resisted temptation, every time you chose humility, it all carried authority. Heaven is not impressed by volume, but by truth. And your quiet truth has shaken what generations of loud rebellion could not move. There are wars that end not with swords, but with surrender. Your willingness to bow before God caused entire ranks of angels to rise. In the unseen, banners were lifted. Demons that had occupied space in your bloodline for decades were ordered to retreat. It wasn't because you shouted them away, it was because you obeyed them away, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 14, "Are they not all ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation? You are that heir. You are the one heaven moves for." Angels are not casual bystanders. They are dispatched by obedience. When you walk in alignment, heaven is obligated to support you. The battlefield reorganizes itself according to your surrender. You have more backing than you realize. When you walk into rooms, you do not walk alone. Heaven's army walks with you. This is why the pressure around your life has intensified. The enemy senses movement in your favor. He knows that one obedient heart can destroy centuries of darkness. He tried to intimidate you with isolation, to make you think your obedience was pointless, but it was never wasted. Your surrender became a command post for heaven. The angels who paused because of your obedience are now in motion again, carrying out assignments written with your name on them. Every delay you've endured has not been denial. It was divine coordination. Heaven had to wait until your obedience reached full maturity before releasing the next wave of glory. And now, it has. Chosen one. You may not see them, but you are surrounded by reinforcement. There are flames of fire standing beside you, waiting for your next act of faith to ignite their next mission. That is why the enemy trembles. He remembers the last time you obeyed, how it sent a ripple through his camp and destroyed his plans before they even began. So keep moving in obedience. Keep walking in surrender. You are not weak because you are quiet. You are powerful because you are aligned. There is a kind of strength that does not roar, it radiates. And that strength is upon you now. The next time you hesitate, wondering if your small act matters, remember this: heaven sees, angels move, and darkness trembles. One obedient person can turn the tide of entire realms. That is you, now, as a prophetic confirmation of your awareness and authority. Comment, "I hear you, Lord." These 4 words are not a casual phrase. They are a declaration of alignment. When you write them, you are agreeing with heaven's command. You are saying, "I choose to remain sensitive to the voice that directs battles I cannot see." You are choosing divine awareness over human reasoning. Those words echo back into the spiritual atmosphere, reminding the unseen forces that you are awake, alert, and fully yielded. Remember, the heavens paused once for your obedience, but when you declare your continued surrender, they accelerate. Obedience is not a one-time event. It is a lifestyle that keeps the angelic host moving. Keep saying yes, even when no one claps. Keep bowing your will, even when the path is unclear. Heaven knows your name, and the war has already begun to tilt in your favor. The angels are watching still. Chosen one. They wait for your next yes. Chosen one. There is a silence that frightens hell. It is the silence of peace that cannot be broken. The stillness of a soul that trusts God beyond understanding. You have carried that silence within you, an unspoken confidence. A calm that comes not from knowing the outcome, but from knowing the one who holds it. And this silence, This quiet obedience has left the enemy in confusion. Heaven has often fought for you while you said nothing. You did not argue with those who misunderstood you. You did not defend yourself against slander. You did not respond when they mocked your faith. What you didn't realize is that your silence was a weapon in the realm of the Spirit. Every word you didn't speak became a sword in God's hand. Every insult you didn't answer turned into armor around your heart. The enemy expected you to explode, to retaliate, to give in to anger. But instead, you stayed still, and that stillness disarmed him. There is a kind of warfare that the loud cannot win, only the peaceful can. You fought it without lifting a word. The Spirit of God Himself fought through your calm. You see, hell understands noise. It thrives in chaos, accusation, and distraction. But it cannot interpret peace. Peace to darkness is like a language it cannot translate. Your peace has been tormenting the enemy. Every time you chose not to react, you exposed the powerlessness of his attacks. There were days when you felt powerless, when your prayers seemed unanswered and your strength seemed gone. But heaven saw differently. You were not powerless, you were positioned. God was teaching you the warfare of stillness, the strategy of silence, the strength of obedience that speaks louder than words. There is a verse that carries the echo of your current season. The Apostle Paul wrote to the believers in Rome, and his words still resound like thunder through generations. The ancient words recorded in Romans, chapter 16, verse 20, declare, "The God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet." Notice what kind of God does the crushing, not the God of noise, not the God of wrath, but the God of peace. The victory is in peace. You win not by shouting louder than your enemies, but by staying rooted in divine stillness while God fights on your behalf. Peace is not the absence of battle, it is the presence of authority. And you, chosen one, have been walking in that authority even when you felt weak. When the storms raged, your peace became a command to the heavens. It said, "Be still," and creation obeyed. When the enemy tried to pull you into chaos, your stillness became a wall he could not cross. You did not know that by keeping quiet, you were pronouncing judgment on the schemes of darkness. Your obedience, especially in restraint, has become a trumpet in heaven's courts. God does not overlook the battles you chose not to fight in the flesh. Every time you walked away from an argument, heaven recorded it as a spiritual victory. Every time you forgave, it was written in the archives of eternity as a conquest. Every time you held your peace, the kingdom of darkness lost ground. Now the enemy stands baffled. His traps did not work. His accusations lost their sting. You no longer respond to the bait because your identity is secure. The one who knows who they are in Christ does not need to prove it. You have learned to rest while others rage. And that rest is royal. That rest is warfare. There are crowns in heaven forged from silent endurance. The thrones of peace are reserved for those who mastered restraint. While the world screams for attention, heaven crowns those who obeyed quietly, who endured gracefully, who trusted unshaken. That is you. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. You have learned that silence does not mean surrender, it means sovereignty. You no longer fight from fear, you reign from peace. And the more peaceful you become, the more powerful your authority grows. So, do not despise the seasons of silence. They are not delays, they are demonstrations. God is showing the world that his peace is more destructive to hell than any storm. The battle around you is no longer fought with words, it is fought with presence. And you carry the presence that makes demons tremble. Chosen one. The stillness within you is not emptiness, it is strength incubating. The next wave of power will rise out of your calm. What confuses hell empowers heaven. Keep your peace, and you will keep your victory. Chosen one. Sometimes heaven speaks, not in thunder, but in whispers. And sometimes those whispers, when obeyed, roar across eternity. What you heard deep within your spirit, the small nudge, the quiet go, the gentle stay, the silent forgive that was not just a thought. That was heaven's code. It was the sound of divine alignment calling you back into purpose. What felt like a whisper in your heart shook the foundations of spiritual realms. When you said yes to that whisper, a sound like lightning rolled through heaven's war rooms. Angels who had been waiting for centuries to move in a certain region suddenly received their command. Darkness trembled, because a human heart had just agreed with the will of God. Beloved, understand this truth. Heaven doesn't need crowds to make noise. It only needs one obedient soul to start a revolution. You are that soul. When you bowed in prayer, when you released that bitterness, when you trusted God again after being wounded, heaven shouted in triumph. The whisper of your obedience roared louder than 1,000 sermons. Your yes became a spark that lit torches in the hands of unseen warriors. Somewhere, a weary soul felt a sudden peace and didn't know why. It was your obedience echoing through eternity. What felt personal to you became global in the spirit, an answered prayer disguised as surrender. And when you stood again after being broken, heaven marked the moment. Angels who had guarded you in silence rejoiced, for they knew this kind of faith births revolutions. Your quiet victory became a sound wave that traveled across generations, shaking chains you'll never see and freeing hearts you'll never meet. We are reminded through the writings of John in the Gospel. Chapter 10, verse 27, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." That is what happened when you listened. You were recognized, the shepherd called, and you responded. That simple act rewrote your spiritual identity. The enemy had labeled you forgotten, but your obedience renamed you known. Heaven sees you not as one of many, but as one whose voice echoes familiarity in the courts of angels. You are known there. Your voice has been archived in the soundscape of heaven's memory. And yet, you did not shout your obedience. You did not demand attention. You simply followed the whisper. That's the beauty of divine faith. It doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. There are people who see only the surface of your life and think nothing extraordinary is happening, but they don't see the roots. You are like a tree in early spring still, silent, seemingly ordinary, but beneath the soil, your roots are breaking through stone, reaching for living water. Soon, there will be blossoms. Soon, your obedience will bear fruit that others will find shade under. Chosen one, your quiet walk has already inspired heaven. Now it is time to let that light ripple outward. When a seed grows into a tree, it gives oxygen to others. When a candle burns, it invites others to see more clearly. When a river flows, it nourishes lands it never touches directly. That's what this message is meant to do, carry light beyond the moment. If this message has touched something deep within you, then let that same whisper guide your next act. support the flow when you like. It is not about algorithms, it's about agreement. You are saying, this light must continue. When you share, you become part of the ripple, allowing someone else's midnight heart to find a sunrise of hope. When you subscribe, you are not joining a channel, you are stepping into a family of listeners who hear the same call, who walk the same narrow road of obedience. And if you feel led to donate, understand this. Giving is not about transaction, it's about participation. A candle that lights another does not lose its flame, it multiplies its fire. Every act of generosity fuels the creation of these messages that keep reaching the forgotten, the weary, the almost broken. You are helping build an altar of voices, one where heaven's words can continue to echo in human hearts. Think of it this way: when you sow into light, darkness loses territory. Every seed, whether it's a prayer, a share, a word of encouragement, or a gift, becomes a spark in someone's darkness. The whisper that once awakened you could awaken thousands more. You are not giving to a project, you are giving to a mission. You are sustaining a river of words that keeps flowing into the deserts of despair. You are helping this light stay lit, so that even the farthest hearts can remember obedience still wins battles unseen. Beloved, never underestimate the power of the small things: a click, a share, a gift. They are not digital gestures, they are spiritual keys. Just as your private yes shifted the heavens, your public act of alignment continues that movement. You are not just listening, you are participating in a divine echo. The whisper that once moved, heaven now calls through you. Keep it alive. Let it travel. Let it heal. Chosen one, do you remember the nights you cried out to God, and it seemed like no one heard? The nights when your prayers bounced off the ceiling, when your sacrifices felt unnoticed, and when obedience seemed to cost everything, yet bring nothing. Those were not wasted nights. They were holy offerings, hidden in fire. What you called pain, heaven called preparation. What you thought no one saw, God sealed in His book as eternal evidence. You stood in the shadows, doing what was right when no one applauded you. You gave when you barely had enough. You prayed when your voice trembled. You forgave when your heart bled. You chose faith over fear, integrity over ease, and truth over comfort. Heaven saw it all. Every act of obedience in secret became a flame in the spirit, burning bright in places where angels war on your behalf. Chosen one, the power hidden in obscurity is greater than you realize. There is a mystery God entrusts only to those who can serve quietly, without validation. While the world seeks platforms, heaven searches for altars, souls who are willing to burn unseen. You are one of those altars. You became a living sacrifice, a torch wrapped in humility, a vessel of divine endurance. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in the first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 5. He will bring to light what is hidden in darkness and will expose the motives of the heart. One day, everything you did in secret will be revealed in glory. The unseen will become seen. What the world ignored, heaven will crown. The fire that surrounded your obedience was never to destroy you, it was to purify you. Gold is never formed without heat. And you, chosen one, have been in the furnace of divine refinement. The enemy watched you walk through that fire, and expected you to collapse. But instead, you glowed. Every tear became oil, every test a testimony. God was not punishing you, He was preparing you to carry His glory without pride. He hid you to protect you from being praised too soon. The power hidden in obscurity is the kind that endures. It does not fade with applause. In the secret places, you learn to hear God's whispers. When others chased attention, you chased His presence. You discovered the beauty of a God who dwells in silence. You learned that obedience is not about understanding, it's about trust. You trusted Him when His plan didn't make sense, when the process broke you, when the promise seemed delayed. And that trust became a weapon sharper than any blade. The spiritual world pays attention to silent faith. Demons retreat, not just at the sound of shouting, but at the presence of stillness anchored in truth. You've been carrying that stillness, and it terrifies the darkness. That's why the enemy tried to isolate you, to convince you your obedience didn't matter, but it mattered more than you'll ever know. Every yes you whispered when no one saw became a strike in the spirit realm, dismantling the enemy's grip piece by piece. Your obscurity has been your armor. Hiddenness was never rejection, it was protection. God placed you behind the veil to build your strength away from distraction. Every delay, every silence, every door that didn't open was heaven saying, "Wait." You're not meant for public applause, you're being trained for eternal authority. When the time comes, what has been cultivated in darkness will burst into light, just as a seed must die in the soil before it can live in sunlight. Your private sacrifices are about to bloom in a glory that the world cannot explain. Heaven is preparing to reveal the purpose of your pain. But hear this, chosen one, do not come out of hiding too soon. Stay in the shadow of His wings until He calls your name. The power of hidden ones is their patience. The anointing on your life grows stronger in silence. The deeper the roots go, the higher the tree will rise. The world is about to see what heaven already celebrates, a soul that never gave up, even when unseen. The weight of divine favor that is forming over your life will not only elevate you, but sustain others. You are being prepared to become a shelter for many, a testimony wrapped in humility. A fire that cannot be extinguished because it learned to burn without attention. Chosen one, your obedience in obscurity has become light in heaven's archives. The moments you cried alone were not wasted, they were counted. Every quiet act of faith sent ripples through eternity. God is about to unfold the chapters written in tears. Your reward will not just be visible blessings, it will be transformation, peace, and divine authority. As a prophetic act of agreement, comment 444 below. This is not a superstition, it is a symbol. 4 is the number of foundation, of divine structure, of stability. When you comment 444, you are declaring, "My hidden obedience has built my foundation. My faith is stable. My roots are deep, and I will not be moved." Let it be a declaration that your unseen seasons were not empty, they were construction sites of destiny. Your hiddenness is holy. Your silence is sacred. The time is near when what was once overlooked will be undeniable. Hold your peace. Keep your faith. And know God is still watching. And when He reveals you, the world will see what heaven always knew, that quiet obedience builds eternal kingdoms. Chosen one, there are times when your spirit feels exhausted for no visible reason, when your body is fine, your surroundings calm, yet your soul carries a weight that words cannot name. You wake up heavy, not because of what's happening around you, but because of what's happening through you. That weight is not weakness, it is warfare. You have been carrying more than you realize. There are moments heaven entrusts a burden to one person to protect an entire generation. When you said yes to obedience, you didn't just accept personal change, you accepted intercession. Your soul became a bridge between what was cursed and what will be redeemed. That's why you feel the tension, the inexplicable fatigue, the invisible pushback. You are holding back floods that were meant to destroy bloodlines. Do not misunderstand this assignment. It's not punishment, it's privilege. God looked across time and chose you because your spirit could endure the pressure. While others crumble under temptation, you withstand storms in silence. You have prayed prayers that kept your family alive without knowing it. You have resisted urges that broke generational chains. You have walked through valleys that would have swallowed weaker hearts. We are reminded through the writings of Paul to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. You, chosen one, have felt that wrestling, the sudden anxiety, the restless nights, the unexplainable warfare, all of it was spiritual. It was never just emotion, it was resistance, because your obedience carries authority. Hell sees you as a threat. The enemy knows that if you ever truly realize how much your presence shifts the atmosphere, you will become unstoppable. That is why he's tried to tire you out, to make you think you are battling yourself when, in truth, you are battling for others. Your tears are not wasted water, they are holy weapons. Each one waters the seeds of victory in unseen soil. When you pray in your weakness, heaven moves in its fullness. The weight you carry is sacred. It means heaven trusts you. God will not place such burdens on hearts that are careless or distracted. He chose you because you are dependable. You are not just surviving, you are standing in the gap. Every time you resisted the urge to quit, you strengthened an invisible wall. Every time you said, God, I still trust you, the structure of darkness lost a brick. You may think your struggle is personal, but it is generational. You are dismantling things your ancestors could not confront. And because of your perseverance, your descendants will walk in freedom you never had. You often wonder why certain attacks come without warning, why moments of peace are followed by waves of exhaustion. It is because the moment you rest, the war tries to regain ground. But even your rest is a weapon. When you rest in faith, it tells the enemy his efforts failed. When you sleep with peace, it testifies that God reigns. Your rest is not escape, it's proclamation. Chosen one, the unseen battles you fight are cosmic. You may not hear the clash of swords, but heaven does. Angels move according to your perseverance. When you choose to stand, they receive strength. When you lift your voice in prayer, they are given direction. You are part of a divine coordination between realms, one that few can understand, yet all benefit from. There is beauty in your endurance. The world measures strength by noise, but heaven measures it by stillness. You have stood quietly, but your silence has been louder than any sermon. You have fought unseen, but your faith has written history in the spirit. That is why the enemy cannot comprehend you. You are fighting with peace. bleeding with purpose, standing with grace. You must know, chosen one, that the heaviness you feel is temporary. Every intercessor eventually passes the burden once it is fulfilled. God is faithful to lift what He has placed once the victory is secured. The fatigue will not last forever. It is only the aftershock of battles won. The weight you carry is not endless, it is seasonal, and when it lifts, you will sense a strange lightness, a still joy, a freedom that feels almost unfamiliar. That will be the sign that heaven has shifted the assignment, that the war you fought in silence has been won. Until then, keep standing. Your endurance is building walls of protection around others. The prayers you whispered through tears are now armor on the shoulders of those who could not pray. You are heaven's shield in human form. Do not despise the weight it proves your calling. There will come a day when you'll look back and realize how many dangers were turned aside because you simply remained faithful. You'll understand that your exhaustion had purpose, that your tears were prophetic, that your nights of prayer were not lonely, they were crowded with angels aligning destinies. Chosen one. There are moments when heaven intervenes not with words, but with reinforcement. You may not see it, but every act of your obedience draws movement from above. Angels are dispatched like winds swift, unseen, precise. They move through dimensions, guided by the sound of divine order. And your name has been spoken among their ranks. You may wonder why. During some of your darkest hours, you felt an inexplicable peace descend upon you. It wasn't mere emotion, it was reinforcement. When you thought you were alone, heaven had already deployed its army. Some angels carried healing, others carried strength, and some simply stood guard around your dwelling. Your obedience had activated a celestial command chain. There is a divine protocol in the spirit realm. Obedience on earth authorizes assistance from heaven. Every yes you whisper becomes a summons. Every prayer you release becomes a signal flare that pierces through layers of spiritual resistance. And every time you continue walking when you feel too weak to move, an angel receives fresh orders. You do not fight alone, and you never have. It was written long ago in the book of Psalms, chapter 91, verse 11, He shall give His angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. That word remains alive in you today. God's command still echoes through the corridors of heaven, directing protection toward your path. The reinforcements around you do not tire. They do not question their mission. They understand the weight of your calling better than you do, and they fight to preserve it. There are battles you never even knew you faced because angels intercepted them. Accidents that never happened. Illnesses that never grew worse. Words spoken against you that never took root. These were not coincidences. They were victories quietly won by the hosts assigned to your obedience. The unseen protection around your life is not random, it is orchestrated. When you walked through the valley of despair and thought you were breaking, invisible hands steadied you. When you wept in silence, angelic messengers carried those tears into heaven's record books. You did not just survive, you were carried. There were nights when the darkness pressed too closely, and you wondered if you could endure another day. But somewhere above, an order was given, strengthen them, and they came. Heaven's reinforcement is not always loud. Sometimes it arrives as a sudden thought of courage, a breath of peace, a friend who texts at the right moment, a memory that reminds you of God's promise. These are not coincidences, they are the footprints of angels. Reinforcement does not always look like rescue. Sometimes it looks like endurance, strength to stand in the storm rather than escape it. You have felt these moments before, haven't you? The inexplicable calm when you should have panicked. The warmth in your chest when hope felt gone. The whisper that said, "Keep going." That was not your mind talking, it was heaven answering. Reinforcement always arrives when surrender has already been spoken. God does not send help to the prideful, He sends it to the obedient. You have opened doors for heaven's army simply by choosing to trust. Every time you obey, you strengthen heaven's legal right to intervene in your story. And each intervention becomes a monument of mercy, a silent testimony that your faith still commands attention in celestial realms. Chosen one, never underestimate the reach of your obedience. It builds invisible bridges across dimensions. Angels traverse those bridges daily, carrying messages, protection, and resources. When you remain faithful, you keep those bridges intact. That is why the enemy tries to pull you into disobedience, not because he fears your mistakes, but because he fears your alignment. When heaven sends reinforcement, it is not just to defend you, but to advance you. The angels surrounding you are not merely guards, they are guides. They clear paths, dismantle obstacles, and arrange divine meetings. Some of your coincidences were heaven's choreography. The people who appeared at the perfect time, the opportunities that unfolded without explanation, those were angelic fingerprints on the pages of your destiny. There is a rhythm to obedience and reinforcement. You move, and heaven moves with you. You speak faith, and heaven builds around your words. You forgive, and angels draw closer. You worship, and their ranks multiply. You rest, and they guard your rest. Every motion of faith sets heaven in motion. And so, chosen one, understand this, you have never walked a single step alone. Even in your loneliness, you were surrounded. Even in silence, you were protected. There are victories happening right now in realms unseen because you chose to remain faithful. Heaven has not forgotten its orders. The reinforcements remain in place, their eyes fixed on you, their swords ready. Continue walking as one who is never unguarded. Your obedience has already built a fortress around your life, and the armies of heaven stand watch upon its walls. Chosen one, do you realize what your tears have been building? Every silent night of endurance, every act of obedience when no one noticed, every decision to keep walking forward when your heart wanted to quit, all of it has been crafting something sacred, a crown forged in silence. The world crowns achievement, but heaven crowns endurance. The unseen victories of your spirit have been shaping a glory no human hand can touch. Every moment you chose faith over fear, trust over explanation, forgiveness over bitterness. A new layer of gold formed in that unseen crown. And though you do not yet see it, heaven already does. It shines brighter with every sacrifice you thought was unseen. You may not have realized that angels have been collecting the fragments of your pain, shaping them into jewels. Each tear you shed in surrender became a sapphire. Each act of perseverance under pressure became a diamond. Each quiet moment of faith became a radiant pearl of obedience. Heaven wastes nothing, not even your heartbreak. As the apostle wrote in the letter of James, chapter 1, verse 12, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial. They will receive the crown of life." That is your inheritance. The crown of life is not a symbol of status, it is the embodiment of every moment you stayed faithful when faith was costly. Your endurance has not gone unnoticed. The angels saw it. Heaven recorded it. God himself smiled upon it. You thought you were just surviving, but in truth, you were being forged. Fire never asks permission to burn, it simply reveals what cannot be consumed. Your trials were not meant to destroy you, but to refine you until the reflection of Christ was all that remained. You didn't lose, you were purified. You didn't break, you were molded. There are crowns being prepared right now for those who endure quietly. Heaven has a workshop of glory, and your story is being polished there. The light of that crown will tell the story of battles fought in silence, battles no one clapped for, victories no one saw, but heaven saw, and heaven celebrates. Chosen one. Every hardship that seemed meaningless has been serving purpose. You are carrying weight in the spirit that can only come from perseverance. You have walked through deserts and discovered that even dust can become holy ground when walked upon in faith. You have been misunderstood, misjudged, and overlooked, but none of those things can disqualify what God has crowned. You may ask, why the crown? Why the reward for obedience? Because heaven honors what the world ignores. Earthly kingdoms reward ambition, but God's kingdom rewards surrender. And in his kingdom, the highest honor is given not to those who shouted the loudest, but to those who obeyed the deepest. There is coming a moment when the unseen will become visible, when your life will radiate with the very glory you carried in private. Others will wonder how you endured, how you kept shining, how you didn't lose hope, and you will know. You will remember every quiet yes, every hidden prayer, every moment you kept walking through the fire. This is why the enemy has fought you so ruthlessly. He cannot destroy the light inside you, so he tries to convince you it doesn't exist. He fears what your perseverance is producing. For every blow he delivered, heaven added another gem to your crown. The very trials meant to bury you became the soil from which your strength grew. The crown you are earning in silence is not made of metal, it is made of meaning. It is not adorned with jewels, but with obedience. It is not worn on the head alone, but radiates from the heart. Every act of love, patience, and surrender becomes its shine. Now, as a prophetic act of acknowledgement, comment, I claim victory. Do not type those words lightly. Let them rise as a declaration, not of pride, but of gratitude. When you write them, you are saying, I understand that my pain has purpose, that my crown is forming, that my endurance is not wasted. You are choosing to stand in faith, to claim what heaven has been preparing while you were waiting. These 3 words, simple but powerful, signal agreement with heaven's record. They remind the darkness that it no longer defines your story. They affirm that you believe what God has spoken, that your perseverance is precious, that your process is holy, that your outcome is already victorious. Your crown may still be forming, but its glow already reaches heaven. Keep walking. Chosen one. Every step polishes it brighter. The weight you feel now will one day become the glory you wear. Chosen one. There is a shift taking place in the spirit. Those who once hid in silence are being summoned into visibility, not to perform, but to serve. You are part of that unveiling. The anointing that rested quietly within you is now ready to breathe through your words. Your presence, your very existence. Heaven is raising hidden champions, and the world is about to meet who heaven already knows you to be. You have been in training while no one watched. Like David tending sheep in the wilderness, you were learning the rhythm of obedience far from applause. You faced lions of loneliness and bears of betrayal while the crowd celebrated others. But now, the same God who watched you worship in obscurity is preparing to reveal you as one who carries the fragrance of the secret place. When oil is pressed, its scent fills the air. That pressing you endured was not punishment, it was preparation. Every hardship was a squeeze that released something sacred. And now, chosen one, heaven is saying, it's time to pour. The Apostle Peter reminds us in his first letter, chapter 5, verse 6, "Humble yourselves under God's mighty hand, and he will lift you up in due time." That time is now unfolding. The due season that felt delayed has only been maturing in grace. The elevation you're stepping into will not look like fame, it will look like impact. You will speak words that pierce hearts, not because of eloquence, but because they were soaked in obedience. You will carry peace that shifts atmospheres, authority that cannot be explained, and tenderness that heals what years of striving could not. Beloved, this anointing is not a spotlight, it is a torch. And torches do not exist to be admired, they exist to ignite. Every story you've lived through, every scar you bear, every testimony you carry is a spark meant to light another. That's why these words reach you today, to remind you that you are part of something greater than a single message. You are part of a movement of light bearers. And as this river of revelation continues to flow, your participation keeps it alive. When you like this message, it is not vanity, it's resonance. It tells heaven, I hear you. When you share, you become a vessel of transmission, sending oil into dry hearts. Each share is like casting seeds into unknown soil. Some will sprout in places you'll never visit. When you subscribe, it's not just about following a voice. It's about remaining connected to the frequency of divine messages that heaven keeps pouring through these words. And if your spirit feels stirred to donate, do not see it as giving to a person, see it as watering the soil where others will be fed. A river cannot flow without tributaries. Your generosity becomes one of those streams that keeps the current alive. The act of giving is not about money, it's about participation in a miracle. You are placing your drop of oil into the lamp so it can keep burning for those still wandering in darkness. Think of it like this: when a lighthouse stands tall on the coast, its light warns ships of danger and guides them safely home. Yet that light only shines because unseen hands keep oil in its lamp. Every gift, every prayer, every act of support you pour into this work is oil for the lamp. You are keeping the lighthouse burning. And when that light reaches someone on the verge of giving up, heaven counts your contribution as part of the rescue. You may never meet them on this side of eternity, but your obedience will have carried light into their night. This is what partnership with heaven looks like. It's not about recognition, it's about resonance. Every act of support reverberates through unseen corridors, touching souls you'll never know, shaping destinies you'll never witness, healing hearts that will one day whisper gratitude you'll hear only in eternity. Chosen one, you are part of a living ministry of obedience. These messages are not simply content, they are lifelines. Each one carries pieces of divine instruction meant for the weary, the broken, the forgotten. When you help sustain this flow, You are co-laboring with heaven, ensuring the oil never runs out. Let your generosity, whether through sharing, subscribing, or giving, be your silent sermon. Let it speak on your behalf. I believe in light. I believe in the power of the word. I believe that obedience can still save the lost. So, if this message has touched something sacred within you, respond as your heart leads. Pour where you are poured into. Give where you are fed. Keep the flame alive, so that others too may rise from their hiding and walk boldly in their divine assignment. Your anointing is not just personal, it's generational. And when you help light the torches of others, your own flame grows brighter. Together, we become a sea of hidden champions, now revealed, carrying the light of the kingdom into every shadowed place. Chosen one. The fiercest battles are not always fought with visible weapons. Sometimes they unfold in the quiet places of the mind, in the echo chambers of doubt that try to drown out truth. You have heard those whispers, the ones that say, "You're not enough. You missed your moment. You must have misunderstood God." They come like shadows at dusk, soft yet persistent, and though no one else hears them, you have wrestled with them deeply. The truth is, the enemy's final tactic against the obedient is not always chaos, it's discouragement. When he cannot destroy your faith, he tries to drain it. When he cannot silence your obedience, he tries to make you question its worth. You've faced that. You've stood in moments where the promise felt far, where your prayers seemed unanswered, where you wondered if your yes had even mattered. But hear this clearly, your obedience was not wasted. Your endurance was not ignored. Heaven measures faith differently than the world does. The world looks for instant results. Heaven looks for consistent trust. Every time you held on when logic said let go, every time you believed without seeing, you proved your loyalty to the King who never fails. Faith is not built in clarity, it is forged in questions. There is a scripture that breathes life into the weary heart. The Apostle Paul wrote to the believers in Galatia, encouraging them not to faint in doing good. His words still echo today. It is written in the letter to the Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart." That is heaven's reminder to you right now. The weariness you feel is not a sign of failure, it's the weight of harvest. The ground you've been plowing is ready. The tears you've shed have watered the soil. The seeds of obedience buried in the dark are beginning to break open. But every harvest comes with resistance. The moment just before breakthrough always feels the hardest. Discouragement is the enemy's counterfeit prophecy. It tries to tell you that your story ends in loss when heaven has already written victory. He whispers despair to make you doubt destiny. But you are not the same person who began this journey. You have grown roots too deep for drought. Your spirit has matured under pressure. And even when you feel tired, you are still standing on promises that cannot die. Chosen one, remember how far you've come. There were days you thought you would not survive. Yet here you are, still breathing, still believing, still walking. That is evidence enough that God's hand has never left you. The storms didn't break you, they trained you. The wounds didn't destroy you, they marked you as chosen. The pain didn't end you, it propelled you toward purpose. Doubt is not the absence of faith, it is the battlefield of faith. When you wrestle with uncertainty but still choose to believe, that is the purest form of trust. Even the greatest prophets faced moments of exhaustion. Elijah hid in a cave and begged for death. Jeremiah wept until his bones ached. Even John the Baptist questioned Jesus from a prison cell. But God did not reject them, He renewed them. And He will do the same for you. Sometimes the divine plan feels delayed, not because you did something wrong, but because heaven is aligning something bigger than you imagined. You are part of a larger tapestry, threads interwoven with countless others. When one thread stretches, the entire picture shifts. Your obedience may be the anchor holding someone else's promise in place. The heaviness of this season is proof of your assignment's magnitude. Diamonds are born under pressure. Seeds break before they bloom. Butterflies struggle before they soar. Likewise, your faith is being perfected through resistance. You are learning endurance not as survival, but as strength. The doubts that once shook you now serve as reminders of how deeply you trust even without sight. The Lord has been silent at times, not because He withdrew, but because He was listening to your prayers, your perseverance, your faithfulness when you heard nothing in return. Heaven's silence often means preparation. The seed does not hear the rain, it simply feels it and grows. Chosen one, you are entering a stage of divine recall. Heaven is remembering every act of obedience you ever gave. What felt forgotten is about to resurface. The doors that stayed closed will open when they no longer threaten your peace. What you thought was delay was actually preservation. God was keeping certain blessings on hold until your heart was strong enough to carry them without losing focus. Discouragement may visit, but it cannot stay. Its voice grows quieter as revelation grows louder. The truth that sustained you in the wilderness will now sustain you in the harvest. The Lord has not forgotten you, He has been refining you. Every disappointment was an invitation to deeper trust. Every unanswered prayer was God writing a better answer behind the scenes. Soon, you will look back and realize that the waiting was not wasted. It shaped the very strength that will carry you forward. What was meant to crush you became the foundation you stand upon. What felt like silence was actually symphony. Heaven was tuning your heart to hear the rhythm of divine timing. So breathe again. Chosen one. Lift your head. The doubts that chased you are losing their power. Your endurance has silenced them. The harvest you've waited for is nearer than it's ever been. Hold steady, because what you planted in pain is about to bloom in peace. And when it does, you'll understand why you had to walk this long road to prove that even when faith trembled, obedience still stood tall. Chosen one, heaven has taken note of what your obedience has released. What began as a private yes has turned into a chain reaction across generations. You may not have realized it, but every decision you've made in surrender has been echoing through time. The ripple of your faith is now becoming a river of freedom for others. You have broken patterns that enslaved those before you. You have interrupted cycles that once seemed unending: anger, fear, poverty, rejection. You didn't just pray for yourself. You shifted an inheritance because you obeyed. Your bloodline is learning freedom because you said yes. The curse that ran through your family has found its stop. Heaven records this as generational victory. One birthed not from battle cries, but from obedience whispered through tears. There is a mystery about obedience. It travels through time. What you do in faith today becomes the foundation your children will walk upon tomorrow. Your yes is a torch passed down through generations. When you trusted God in silence, you gave permission for future generations to trust Him in confidence. It was written in the sacred pages of Joshua. Chapter 24, verse 15. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That verse is not just history, it is prophecy. The declaration of one obedient person became the anthem of an entire lineage. Joshua's faith preserved a nation's future, and so does yours. The spirit of obedience that rests upon you is rewriting your family's spiritual DNA. What began with your surrender will not end with your lifetime. You may not see it all yet. Some transformations happen quietly, almost invisibly, like roots growing underground, a son finding peace, a daughter choosing purity, a sibling suddenly hungry for truth. These are not coincidences. They are proof that your obedience has been working in the unseen. God is touching hearts that you have prayed for but could never reach. Chosen one. Heaven honors generational repairers. Every act of forgiveness you've offered has undone decades of bitterness. Every boundary you've set in righteousness has built a wall against spiritual decay. You are not just living a life, you are establishing a lineage. What once was marked by dysfunction is being renamed by grace. The river that ran through your blood has been purified, and now fresh water flows through your line. The Spirit of God has been visiting your family tree, branch by branch. The dry ones are being pruned, and the living ones are beginning to bloom. Your name will not be remembered for the pain you endured, but for the peace you birthed. You are becoming a turning point in heaven's records, a generation changer, a bridge between what was cursed and what will be blessed. It is no small thing that you are reading these words. Heaven arranged this moment as confirmation that your obedience has meaning far beyond you. The intercession of your heart has reached the throne, and angels have been dispatched to fulfill promises spoken long before you were born. There are prayers your ancestors prayed but did not live to see answered, yet you will see them, because you obeyed. The fulfillment has been accelerated. Do you understand what this means? You are standing at the threshold of multiplied grace. When you lift your hands in worship, your descendants will feel the tremor. When you stand in faith, your children will stand taller. The victory that began as your whisper will become their inheritance song. This is the ripple effect of divine obedience. It outlives the one who releases it. Generations after you will tell stories of peace they never had to fight for, of deliverance they never had to earn, all because you stood firm in your hidden season. You became a bridge heaven could walk across. So now, as a prophetic act, declare your alignment by commenting 555 below. This is not superstition, it's symbolism. 5 is the number of grace, and 555 represents multiplied grace, generational grace. When you type it, you're saying, grace runs in my family now. Obedience flows through our bloodline. What was broken is being restored, and my yes will echo through my descendants. Your comment is more than engagement, it is agreement. You are writing into the spiritual record that grace has claimed your lineage. You are sealing the covenant that your obedience began. Chosen one, your faith is bigger than your lifetime. The ripple has become a wave. Heaven is singing over your family's future, declaring, it is finished. The battles that once consumed generations will not reach your children. The peace you fought for will become their starting point. Because you obeyed. Mercy runs in your name. Because you believed. Your descendants will dream. And because you endured, your family will know what freedom feels like. Chosen one. Heaven does not forget. The echoes of your obedience travel farther than sound and last longer than time itself. In the unseen courts of eternity, there are records, not of your failures, but of your faithfulness. Every moment you chose God when it cost you something was written in those books. Every sacrifice you made, every secret act of compassion, every tear that carried prayer within it, none of it has vanished. Heaven has remembered your name. The world forgets easily. People applaud one day and disappear the next. But heaven does not applaud, it invests. Every act of obedience you've given has become divine currency, stored not in earthly vaults, but in the treasury of eternity. And in this very moment, heaven is calling those investments to return with interest. You may have felt overlooked. You may have asked, God, have you forgotten me? But he hasn't. He never does. The silence you experienced was not neglect, it was incubation. Seeds must remain hidden before they break forth into harvest. The reward has been growing underground, waiting for the moment when its roots are strong enough to bear the fruit without breaking the tree. We are told of such remembrance in the book of Acts. Chapter 10, verse 4, a memorial offering, and your prayers have ascended as a remembrance before God. Those words were first spoken to Cornelius, but the truth they carry extends to you. God remembers. He does not overlook devotion. He has seen the offerings of your heart, your giving, your prayer, your surrender, and he has stored them like incense before his throne. Each prayer rises still, fragrant, glowing with the fire of your persistence. There are times when the heavens seem silent because they are busy responding. Heaven's memory is not passive, it is active. When God remembers, he moves. His remembrance is a verb, not a thought. And now, chosen one, heaven's remembrance is stirring over your life. The things that were delayed are being revisited. The doors that felt sealed are being reviewed. Your name has come up again, not as an afterthought, but as an agenda. In the archives of the divine, there are seasons when God reopens files marked with your faith. He reads them not because he forgot, but because the time has come for fulfillment. You are in such a season now. The tears you cried years ago are being converted into favor. The obedience you offered when no one noticed is being turned into opportunity. The faith that looked foolish is being translated into fulfillment. Chosen one, remembrance is not nostalgia, it's activation. When heaven remembers, it releases. When God recalls your faithfulness, he reorders the world around you to honor it. He shifts hearts, aligns circumstances, stirs people to speak your name in rooms you've never entered. What seemed random begins to weave into design. This is divine repayment, not a transaction, but transformation. You will not simply receive back what you lost, you will receive what you became capable of handling because of what you lost. The waiting refined you so that the blessing would not crush you. Heaven's timing always protects what heaven promises. You are entering a moment of unveiling. The hidden work of years is about to bear visible fruit. But notice when heaven remembers your name, it also remembers your purpose. God does not bless you just to comfort you. He blesses you to commission you. The favor that is coming carries responsibility. It is not the end of a journey, but the beginning of influence. The remembrance of heaven is always tied to mission. Joseph was remembered by Pharaoh's cupbearer, not merely to be freed, but to rule. Hannah was remembered not merely to bear a son, but to birth a prophet. You, too, are remembered not just to be comforted, but to be positioned. When heaven calls your name again, step forward without hesitation. You are not who you were when you first obeyed. The fire you endured has shaped your capacity. The silence you survived has deepened your wisdom. And the remembrance now unfolding will not just reward you, it will reveal you. Chosen one. Heaven's memory never fades. It is written in eternal ink, carved into light. Every yes you've spoken still echoes, still counts, still lives. The Lord has not forgotten your labor of love, and soon you will see tangible proof of his remembrance. What was once hidden will stand as testimony. What was once delayed will now accelerate. The Father whispers even now, I remember, and when he remembers, everything changes. Chosen one. There are moments in your story when heaven leans close, so close that mercy itself seems to breathe upon you. You may not have realized it, but there have been times when you stood on the very edge of collapse, and something unseen caught you before you fell. It wasn't luck, it was mercy leaning in. You were moments away from walking away, from letting go, from closing the door on faith. The weight of unanswered prayers pressed too heavily. The silence of God felt too deep, and your strength seemed too small. Yet, somehow, you stayed. Somehow, the breaking point didn't break you. That somehow was not willpower, it was divine intervention. Heaven interrupted your surrender. There are times when mercy does not shout, it whispers. It arrives not as a miracle that shakes the earth, but as a quiet thought that says, try again. It slips into your soul through the smallest cracks of hope. You might have mistaken it for coincidence, the song that played at the right time, the unexpected message, the sudden peace that made no sense, but it was heaven's hand touching your heart before despair could take hold. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, and his words still carry warmth through ages. It is written in the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verse 23. His mercies are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Each dawn you have woken up with breath in your lungs has been proof of that truth. Mercy renewed itself while you slept. Even when your faith fainted, his faithfulness didn't. The fact that you are still standing, still believing, still hoping is not your achievement. It is his mercy, alive in motion. You see, mercy has a rhythm. It flows between heaven and earth like a heartbeat, pulsing with forgiveness, compassion, and divine patience. There are moments when justice steps forward, but mercy steps in front of it and says, wait, not yet, they still have purpose. That is what happened when you nearly gave up. Mercy shielded you from the full impact of your pain and whispered life into what felt lifeless. You have been carried more times than you realize. There were seasons when your prayers felt unanswered, but they were answered differently. Mercy does not always remove the storm, it builds a shelter in it. It teaches you that protection doesn't always look like escape. Sometimes it looks like endurance strengthened by grace. Chosen one. God's mercy has followed you through every valley. It stood behind you when you stumbled and walked before you when you were afraid. There were paths you almost took, paths that would have led to ruin, but mercy turned your steps without your awareness. You saw a closed door. Heaven saw a rescue. Mercy does not just save you from danger, it saves you from becoming what the danger wanted you to be. It guards not only your life, but your identity. When disappointment tried to harden you, Mercy softened you again. When bitterness tried to grow roots in your heart, mercy uprooted them quietly, leaving tenderness where scars wanted to form. You may not remember every detail of your survival, but heaven does. The archives of eternity hold every time mercy intervened. Each instance is marked as a moment of divine preservation. Heaven's records will one day reveal how many times you were spared, not because you were perfect, but because you were chosen. There will always be mysteries in mercy. Why certain doors shut. Why some prayers waited. Why others were answered in ways you didn't want. Yet every mystery has purpose. Sometimes God allows the night so that you can discover His light is not dependent on the sun. Sometimes He delays so that you learn love that lasts longer than pain. Chosen one, you are not surviving on strength alone. You are sustained by mercy's memory. Even now, as you read these words, mercy surrounds you again, gentle, steady, constant. The same mercy that caught you before will keep catching you still. And though you may not feel it every moment, you are walking inside a story written by compassion. Each step you take is lined with grace, too deep for words. The plans that almost failed, the relationships that almost broke you, the faith that almost faded, all of it has been stitched back together by merciful hands. So, breathe, rest. You do not need to earn what mercy gives freely. You do not need to prove your worth to the one who already calls you worthy. Tomorrow will arrive, and when it does, mercy will meet you again fresh, undeserved, unstoppable. The moment mercy leaned in once saved you from despair. The next time it leans, it will lift you into destiny. And when it does, you'll finally see what heaven has always known. You were never forgotten, you were being carried. Chosen one, the season of hiddenness is ending. What once felt like isolation is being redefined as preparation. Heaven is calling forth the hidden warriors, the ones who fought in silence, who prayed in secret, who stood firm when no one else could see. You are among them. The Father is unveiling those who were trained in obscurity, those whose obedience was forged in private fire. You are stepping out of the shadows, not to be seen for fame, but to be seen for function. You carry a sound, a light, a fragrance that the world desperately needs. What the wilderness built in you is now becoming your weapon. You do not come from comfort, you come from consecration. The oil that rests upon you drips from the years of tears, discipline, and endurance. It was declared through the prophet Isaiah. Chapter 60, verse 1. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. This is that moment. The command to rise is not just poetic, it's prophetic. It is heaven's activation word over your life. Every delay that once felt like denial was only a pause in divine choreography. God was positioning you for this unveiling. You will not rise with arrogance, but with awareness. You will not shine for attention, but for assignment. When light finally breaks through after years of silence, it does not need to prove itself. It simply shines. You, too, have nothing to prove. You only have to be what God shaped you to be. Your story, your scars, your faith, they are the sermon heaven has been writing through your life. The hidden ones are not forgotten, they are reserved. Diamonds are hidden until the right light reveals their worth. Seeds are buried until the right season calls them to bloom. You have been hidden because your time of exposure needed to align with heaven's calendar. not man's. And now, the trumpet has sounded. Chosen one, as you step forward, remember that light shared is light multiplied. The same way one candle can ignite thousands without losing its flame, your obedience has the power to set others ablaze. These words you hear, this message that reaches you now, is part of that shared fire, a spark from the altar of God, designed to awaken every dormant warrior within reach. When you like this message, you are not just pressing a button, you are adding oxygen to the flame. It tells heaven, this word found me, and I will not let the fire die here. When you share, you become a torchbearer. Your action is not digital, it is spiritual. You are carrying a light into timelines, homes, and hearts you may never personally visit. When you subscribe, you are choosing consistency over convenience. You are saying, I want to walk with this light, not just glance at it, and each time you return, heaven has fresh manna waiting for you, words not of routine but revelation. And if your heart feels stirred to donate, let it not be out of obligation, but participation. You are not funding a project, you are fueling a mission. Think of it as oil for the lamp. Every drop matters. Every gift keeps the message glowing for those still walking through their night. Consider the image of a lighthouse. It does not travel with the ships it guides, it simply stands, shining steadily through storm and fog. But its light needs oil to keep burning. Your generosity becomes that oil, allowing this beacon to stand tall, to call lost souls back to safety, to remind the weary that the shore still exists. When you sow into light, you are joining heaven's architecture of redemption. You are helping build bridges of words that reach hearts on the edge. Each like, share, comment, or gift becomes a brick in the unseen temple God is raising through these messages. Chosen one, the era of silence has closed. The era of shining has begun. But shining is not showing off, it's showing God. Let your testimony gleam through humility, your influence flow from love, and your platform become an altar. As you rise, others will rise with you. The hidden ones are never meant to shine alone, they form constellations. Together, they guide the lost home. So, let this be your act of alignment today. Engage with what ignites your spirit. Comment below, tell what part of this word touched you. Your words may be the confirmation another soul needs to keep believing. Sometimes, your testimony is the torch that rekindles another warrior's faith. You were hidden for a reason, refined for a season, and now revealed for a purpose. The glory resting upon you is not borrowed, it was born in you. And now heaven whispers again, arise, shine, chosen one. The air has shifted, the spiritual atmosphere has changed, and something deep inside you senses it. The realm around you is no longer quiet, it is alive with movement. The final clash between light and darkness is intensifying, but unlike the wars you have faced before, this one is not about survival. It is about dominion. You have moved from defending your faith to establishing the territory heaven gave you. The battle has never been about you, it has always been about what you carry. The enemy fears your obedience because it carries authority. Every yes you have spoken to God has built spiritual walls around your destiny. Every act of surrender has forged a weapon in your hands that darkness cannot duplicate. This is why the attacks grew fiercer as you grew stronger. The enemy does not waste resources on the indifferent, he targets the anointed. You were once the hunted. Now, you are the storm. You no longer fight as one begging for protection. You fight as one crowned with purpose. Every scar has become armor. Every wound a portal for divine power to flow through. You have been refined by fire. And fire no longer frightens you. The Apostle Paul wrote to the believers in Ephesus, reminding them of the divine strategy for unseen battles. It is written in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 11, "Put on the whole armor of God, so you may stand against the devil's schemes." Chosen one. That armor is not metaphorical for you, it is literal in the spirit. You have worn it long before you understood its weight. Your helmet of salvation guarded your mind during the nights of torment when lies tried to take root. Your breastplate of righteousness protected your heart when betrayal tried to make it hard. The belt of truth held you together when confusion pressed in. The sword of the Spirit, your obedience, your declaration. Your faith has cut through darkness again and again. You have been tested in every part of that armor. And now you stand not as a recruit, but as a warrior seasoned by war. Heaven's generals know your name because you have fought in battles unseen. And each time, you emerged carrying more light than before. The final clash is not just around you, it is within you. It is the tension between your humanity and your calling, between your weariness and your worship, between your fears and your faith. But you are learning that these conflicts do not disqualify you, they purify you. The closer the light draws, the louder the shadows scream. That is how you know breakthrough is near. Do not fear the darkness. Its roar is proof of its defeat. Darkness makes noise when it senses eviction. It trembles because it remembers the last time you stood firm, the last time you refused to quit, the last time your yes silenced its plans. The enemy knows that a believer who refuses to retreat becomes a beacon that draws others home. You are that beacon now. Heaven's armies are not far, they are beside you. The battle is coordinated. You are not fighting alone. There are legions moving in sync with your prayers. Swords of flame cutting through unseen resistance. What feels like delay is often heaven clearing the airspace around you so that what is coming can arrive unobstructed. Chosen one. This final battle is not meant to destroy you, but to reveal you. The shaking is not a sign of collapse, it is a signal that the new foundation is being tested. Everything built on obedience will endure. Everything rooted in truth will remain. What was false will fall away, and what is divine will shine brighter. You have learned to fight differently now. Once, you fought with fear in your eyes. Now you fight with peace. Peace is your weapon because it confuses chaos. Worship is your sword because it disarms despair. Stillness has become your shield because it declares, God is in control. You have learned to wield heaven's silence as power, not punishment. The final clash is not loud, it is precise. Heaven does not waste motion, and neither can you. Every prayer now is a command. Every word you speak carries weight. You no longer plead for victory, you enforce it. You are heaven's representative on the battlefield of earth, and the war has already been won in the unseen. You simply bring that victory into visibility. Chosen one. This is not the end of your struggle, it is the beginning of your reign. You are no longer simply surviving the attacks of darkness, you are reclaiming territory it once held. The places of your greatest pain are becoming platforms of testimony. The valleys that once broke you are becoming springs of revelation. This is what all the trials were preparing you for, not just strength, but authority. You will speak, and atmospheres will change. You will walk, and oppression will lift. You will pray, and peace will settle like morning dew. The power within you is not yours, it is heaven's, but it flows through you because you have learned obedience. Do not mistake this final clash for chaos. It is coronation. When the shaking stops, what will remain is glory. When the dust settles, you will see that every battle was a rehearsal for the unveiling of God's power in your life. You were trained in fire so that you could carry flame. Stand firm. Chosen one, the realms are watching. Heaven is with you. And the victory that began with your quiet obedience will end in thunderous triumph. You are fully armed, fully anointed, and fully ready. The last war will not break you, it will crown you. Chosen one. The sound you hear in your spirit now is not the noise of battle, it is the resonance of victory. The war that raged in silence, the storms that tested your soul, the nights that seemed endless, all of it has brought you here. The air feels lighter, doesn't it? That is because heaven has shifted the weight. You are standing in the aftermath of triumph. And though the battlefield still carries scars, peace now reigns over it. You have been crowned, not by the world's applause, but by heaven's decree. This crown is not made of gold that tarnishes or jewels that fade. It is made of endurance, faith, and obedience. You earned it not by fighting loudly, but by trusting quietly. You wore humility when pride beckoned. You carried faith when fear screamed. You loved when hatred tried to harden you. That is what made you a victor. The Apostle Paul once wrote to Timothy with words that echo through the corridors of eternity. It is written in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 4, verse 8, "Henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day." That same promise is yours. Heaven has declared your endurance complete. The warfare that once terrified you has become the platform that identifies you. You are no longer the trembling one in the valley, you are the crowned one standing on the mountain. You have become the proof that quiet obedience overturns darkness. Chosen one. Look at how far grace has brought you. There was a time when you doubted you would survive. You questioned your worth, your strength, your purpose. Yet here you are stronger, softer, wiser. The fires that once burned to consume you have now become your light. You carry the aroma of the furnace, but not its ashes. Every wound became a window for glory to shine through. You were once hidden, but now heaven has written your name in light, not for vanity, but for remembrance. The angels know your story. They have sung of your endurance in heaven's halls. They remember the nights you cried and the mornings you rose again. You have become a living testimony, a portrait of what grace can do when a human heart refuses to let go. The crown upon you is not just a reward, it is a reflection. It mirrors the image of Christ within you. You resemble him more now than ever before. Not because life was easy, but because you allowed pain to refine rather than define you. Every surrender drew you closer to his likeness, until his strength became your nature and his peace became your posture. Chosen one, your crown carries responsibility. It is not meant to rest in complacency, but to reign in compassion. You are not called to rule over others, but to lead them into the same freedom you found. Those still fighting in the shadows will find hope through your story. Your endurance has purchased clarity for them. The mercy that kept you alive will now flow through you to keep others standing. Do not forget where you came from. The memory of the valley keeps the crown steady on your head. The ones who remember their pain rule with mercy. And mercy is the mark of true authority. You were not crowned because you conquered others. You were crowned because you conquered yourself, your doubt, your anger, your fear. The crown of righteousness does not shout. It glows. It shines quietly, illuminating paths for those behind you. Wherever you go, light will follow. Wherever you speak, peace will echo. Your presence will be proof that God still redeems, that obedience still wins, that hope still breathes. Chosen one, your race is not over, but it has changed. You no longer run to survive, you run to serve. You no longer fight to prove, you fight to protect. You are the testimony heaven displays when someone wonders, can God still use me after everything your life answers? Yes, He can and He will. The silence of your obedience has turned into the song of your victory. You are crowned for eternity, not because you were perfect, but because you were faithful. The heavens watch, the earth listens, and the spirit within you whispers, it is finished, but also begun. Your journey from hiddenness to honor, from breaking to becoming, from trembling to triumph, has not only transformed you, it has shifted the landscape of the spirit itself. Where you once stood in fear, light now stands in power. Chosen one, wear your crown lightly but live your purpose fully. You are heaven's proof that obedience is never wasted, that surrender is never weakness, and that love, quiet, constant, divine, always wins. Chosen one, you have walked through the full circle of revelation, from silence to surrender, from obedience to authority, from battle to crown. You have heard heaven's heartbeat and learned that obedience is not noise, it is power. What you have read, what you have felt stirring within you, was not just words, it was prophecy, awakening purpose. Your journey is not ending here. This message, this divine thread, is only a bridge to what comes next. You carry light now, light that was once buried beneath the ashes of pain. And that light was never meant to stay hidden. Somewhere, another soul is standing where you once stood, in the quiet battle between despair and destiny, waiting for a sign that God still remembers them. You could be that sign. When you like this message, it tells heaven and earth that you are in agreement with its truth. When you share, you are extending your own light into someone else's darkness, sending hope into timelines you may never see. Each share becomes a ripple of divine intervention. When you subscribe, you are not following a voice, you are anchoring yourself in a stream of revelation that heaven continues to pour. You are choosing to stay connected to a community of chosen ones, walking the same narrow road of obedience and purpose. And, dear warrior of light, take a moment to comment below. Let your words become a spark of testimony. Maybe it's one sentence, maybe one phrase, but your voice matters. You never know who might be reading your comment at the exact moment they're about to give up. Your story could be the whisper that saves them. Heaven sees every engagement as worship in action, obedience in motion. These small acts build altars in the digital wilderness, places where faith and fire meet. So, chosen one, keep shining, keep walking, keep obeying. The battle has shifted, but the mission remains to fill the world with light. One obedient heart at a time.